All right, discussion. We'll move on from the puppy doggies. You should really focus on using discussion to explain how the technique you've chosen is important to your answer. Now, this is the next step along from what we've just discussed with actually finding evidence. You need to incorporate that into your discussion and really emphasize why this evidence is there. So, for instance, you can do this by linking the technique to your topic sentence, and this is how you should really be trying to do it. So, emotion is used in X to strengthen meaning. All right, that's my topic sentence. Emotion is used in this text to strengthen meaning. And I'm using my evidence here, I'm using my language technique. Repetition of freedom at last reflects an emotional argument, which when repeated becomes stronger. Okay, emotion is used to strengthen meaning. Repetition, a language technique, strengthens meaning through emotion. Yep, okay, I'm answering that. And ultimately, that will go back to what my question is asking as well. Okay, so it's not just there to have a quote or a different technique. It's there to prove this, and it's there to prove what the question is asking me to do. All right, so that's what the discussion is for. I mean, we've got the evidence there, but we've also got that discussion that goes with it, and that's the most important thing that you can have. It's one thing to have evidence, and even if you just put repetition of freedom at last, it doesn't say why it strengthens meaning. It just says there's repetition of freedom at last. Okay, yeah, you could probably assume that, but it's not our job as markers and as teachers to assume that you know the answer. We want you to prove to us you know the answer and you can explain why. All right, so you need to add this bit as well. Now, finally, if you get an essay question which asks you to discuss a language technique or a type of language technique, as a lot of essay questions do, then you need to focus on how a text uses techniques as a whole rather than just spew out a lot of different examples. So you need to think of it as a pie. As in, if you just list a couple of different techniques, then what you're doing is you're just saying that I've just discussed a part of the pie because I've used a couple of the techniques that were in the text and proven that yes, they're there, so therefore it must exist for the whole text. However, that doesn't. If you just list examples and don't really explain why they're there, then even if they're examples that the question is asking for, you're not going to get a very strong mark. The only way you can get a strong mark is you can talk about how it applies to the whole pie. So even if you've just taken a slice, you need to be able to apply that slice and say that this applies to the whole thing. So first of all, you need to be able to discuss it as a whole and actually say that techniques do this. So for instance, repetition is used throughout the text to represent emotional points in a memorable way. So we're not just going straight for an example here. We're going towards what repetition does throughout the text first. This enables the author to reinforce his main ideas and question the audience. Again, it all basically states what the text is trying to do. For instance, freedom at last, the example we've used before. Okay, that's using that little slice of the text that we used before. If we just said that repetition is used, so for instance, freedom at last, well, that's just one example. It doesn't say why the text does it. It just says there's an example in there. Okay, well, yeah, there probably is an example because that's what the question is asking us. It's not asking is there repetition or not. It's asking us how it's used. So you need to say how it's used rather than just list it. Okay? Very easy. So just remember that you are trying to discuss a whole, no matter what text it is you're trying to answer. And even if you're doing it for a short answer question, you really still need to focus on the whole text rather than just a small part. So in summary, you need to make sure you understand why you're using your chosen evidence. You need to do what this gentleman in my image here has not decided to do, which is actually question, why am I doing this? Because I'm sure if you actually question why he's doing this, he probably would stop doing it. It's important that you're able to explain in your own words how it satisfies a question and task and really does explain why you've put that evidence in there. So there's a reason, there's a logic, and there is emotion for it. There's a reason for it to be there. It's not just throwing random chainsaws and just waiting for one to lop a limb off. It's going to get exactly to the point and you know exactly what it is you're doing. And that's pretty much it for writing about them. Make sure that you really do understand these techniques. Go back over it again if you're not sure. But otherwise, until next time, I'll see you later.